Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 36 of the Elevator Chat series of our Canadian journey. I am Darshan Maharaja. As you have surely noticed, we are now living through some interesting times. This has reference to that well-known Chinese curse. One of the factors making our times interesting is the unintended consequences of an immigration policy that, in the words of the immigration minister himself, quote, out of control, end quote. As time passes, different facets of this unintended consequence come to the surface. The latest facet to emerge is the vocal presence of Canadians who resent the very existence of non-white people in Canada. This was entirely predictable and therefore preventable. However, although politics is supposed to be the art of the possible in theory, it ends up being the art of self-preservation in practice. Therefore, it was not considered at the political levels a necessity to prevent this unintended consequence. Of late, mainstream media has been chanting about the immigration consensus that they say had existed for decades. I find this description a bit problematic, but that is a separate debate. I believe that while there were many shortcomings of our immigration policy, which led to differing opinions, not a consensus, whatever discomfort that different types of people may have felt about the policy was manageable. That discomfort, it was manageable. Therefore, what has been destroyed by the out-of-control immigration policy is not a consensus, but rather the manageability of the problems arising from these shortcomings of the policy. Here I will loop back to politics being the art of the possible. Until recently, our immigration policy remained within the bounds of what was possible overall. It was then pushed beyond these bounds in favor of what was possible for a handful of stakeholders at the expense of the interests of society at large. The result of this imbalance is that more and more stakeholders, constituencies if you will, are both in strong opposition to the policy as well as strongly vocal about it. So now you have a situation where public debate on immigration, which was once muted and civil, has become heated and strident. This has created fertile ground for the more strident and even intolerant voices to pipe up. Over the last couple of days, National Post columnist Rupa Subramanya has been fighting a lonely battle against these intolerant voices, with yours truly playing a supporting role. Unsurprisingly, the arguments offered by the intolerant crowd are full of holes. For example, they say that only people of European origin have a right to be in Canada, but then they are unable to explain whether this excludes the First Nations. Some of them try to strike a compromise by saying that people who were born in Canada can be included in the definition of Canadian. But then they are left clueless when asked if this means that foreign-born parents of Canadian-born children don't have a right to be in Canada. Are we going to deport the parents only and thus break up millions of families? They offer no answer. Another familiar argument of theirs is that their ancestors built Canada. True enough, nobody can deny that. But this argument ignores the fact that building Canada is an ongoing process. If we view Canada as it existed in the mid-20th century as the finished and final form of the country, then we are going to fall behind by leaving it unchanged. For the record, I believe that we have already fallen behind other countries. But that is because our socio-economic environment is not conducive to utilizing the full potential of all Canadians. I also believe that this handicap can be surmounted, although with great difficulty, because the handicap has been allowed to grow bigger for so long. Coming back to the topic, by creating an environment where immigration, including international students and temporary foreign workers, was jacked up to insane levels, and where objecting to this mass immigration was considered taboo. The extreme left has enabled the previously sidelined hardcore racists to come out of the woodworks and express their intolerance of non-white Canadians. They are able to do this because whereas previously they would have been the only ones speaking stridently about immigration, a prospect that discouraged them from expressing their hatred, now their voice is just one of the many voices in the debate over immigration. They find safety in the cacophony. A mindless and obsessive pursuit of diversity has produced disharmony. The task before us is how to end this eruption of intolerance. Well, they are in a tiny minority, as I said earlier, but still, it needs to be addressed. As a first step, the Liberals will have to accept responsibility for having created this ugly situation, but that seems unlikely to happen. So I guess we will have to wait until they are no longer in government before we can start addressing this situation. If you have any other ideas, please let me know in the comments. Until we meet again, goodbye and be well.